Yeah.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I know I've been a little behind on these reviews coming out of the Toronto International Film Festival, but today I am so pleased and excited to bring you my review of Sean Baker's Anora, starring Mikey, Madison, Mark Edelstein, Yura Borisov, Karen Karjulian, and Vache Tavmasian, and this follows a woman named Annie, or Anora, who is an exotic dancer who stumbles into the son of a Russian oligarch one night. They kind of start their own, relationship exclusively, and she marries him only for the rug to be pulled out from underneath her. And this movie has been getting so much traction, obviously. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. You look at the movies that have won the Palme d'Or in the past. I mean, Anatomy of a Fall last year, which was one of my favorite films of that year. And, of course, if we go way back, Parasite, which is one of the greatest movies of all time, and went on to win Best Picture. Now, that has only happened 3 times, I believe, in the history of the Academy Awards, with Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend, which is one of his best films, Marty, which is good, but, nothing crazy, and then Parasite, of course, which is an absolute masterpiece. Now, do I think Anora is going to follow in the footsteps of those 3 films? And I kind of have a feeling that it just very well might. And part of me does wonder, because this awards season, I think there's, not much of a front runner. Everything's kind of up in the air this early on in the season, but since we've seen almost all the movies that are going to be contenders, it does look like if there was one front runner out of all of those, it would be Anora. I mean, this has been making massive waves, and for good reason. I mean, Sean Baker has put in some really tremendous work in the past decade. The kind of people that he highlights, the kind of stories he tells, they're very human, and really highlights perhaps communities that we don't really look at or find their stories worth telling. But I think in every single film that he's done, from Florida Project to, well, of course, even before that, Tangerine, to Red Rocket, now to this, I think it is proof that these stories are worth telling, and these people are, worth, giving a spotlight to. And I think that Anora, while I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite movie of the year or anything, I do think this is another fantastic effort from Sean Baker, and a lot of people have been saying it's his best. What do I have to say about that? Well, I'll be honest, when I went to the screening, I was a little bit tired, not completely out of it, mind you, but I had a nose that was running the entire time, and it really distracted a lot of my attention. But honestly, I think this story took a little while to get going and find its footing, at least for me. Now, I will fully say that this could evaporate on a rewatch, and I could be saying this is one of my absolute favorite movies of the year, especially now that I know where this film goes and what it builds to. I think knowing that in advance and watching the pieces come together is going to be more gratifying on rewatch. But as it stands, I still think that this is an absolute blast of a movie. And I think the first half, while it does take its time, while it does kind of just, stay in one place for the most part, there's so much great humor to be found. I mean, this is undeniably one of the funniest movies of the year. And I think they pull some really great humor out of very dark situations that end up being bizarrely comic in so many ways. It almost is like a screwball comedy in the classic vein of a Howard Hawks film, But a lot of people, including I think Sean Baker himself, have compared the first half of this film to Pretty Woman on steroids. Now, I haven't seen Pretty Woman, I know, crazy, right? But I do feel like, based on what I know about that film, that's a pretty apt description. And the second half just takes a wild turn. It's, it's all lavish, it's all great until it's not. And shit kind of hits the fan in a big, big way, in a very boisterous and hysterical way at that. But still, this story really has so many funny hijinks, I think, that really just keep you surprised and entertained throughout the entire runtime. Yet again, it's an absolute riot of a movie. And I think a lot of that has to do with the incredible ensemble cast here. You know, leading the way is Mikey Madison, who I now have the biggest crush on, and if you're watching, hey, how you doing, Mikey? But anyways, she is absolutely ferocious, fierce, sexy, boisterous, and literally explodes off the screen every second that she's on, but brings a really deep emotional vulnerability to her character as well that kind of reveals itself throughout the movie. And a lot of people are toting her to win Best Actress, and I would completely understand it. I mean, look, from what I've gathered by seeing her in person, she seems very much more introverted. So to pull this role from inside of her, it really is an impressive performance. And I do think she could go all the way to the win, because I think that this movie is being talked about that much, and I think it is being hyped up that much, and I do think that she really could come along and ride the wave with this movie, and deservedly so, because definitely one of the more standout leading performances of this year. She carries this movie and is by far the MVP. But I also have to give big shout out to Mark Edelstein in here, who gives maybe one of my favorite supporting performances of the entire year. Very reminiscent to me of how I felt last year watching Dominic Sessa in The Holdovers, where this guy kind of came out of seemingly nowhere, but yet delivers such a not only hysterical turn in this film, but is so captivating from a dramatic standpoint as well. I think he gets some of the biggest laughs, especially in the first half of this movie, and I think the relationship that his character and Mikey Madison's Annie builds throughout the entire story is really key to understanding her character and also him as well, because the situation that these two are thrusted into is one that has a lot of depth to it that you may not expect in the ways that the film is setting it up. And I think, yet again, how that evolves throughout the story is really, really spectacular. And yet again, all of these people I've mentioned are all great. I think, though, the other standout to me is Yuri Borisov, who kind of has a very interesting arc in the film. And I really was very surprised where they go with his character, but in the best way possible. I think it really makes the second act that much better. But yet again, everybody is firing off on all cylinders here. And there's this amazing sequence, because I think I'm more impressed by it looking back now that I have more information. But it was all done in real time. And it was like, what? And it's probably like the craziest moment in the film, where all the hijinks kind of come up to the surface and, you know, butt heads. Quite literally, and it is just an unbelievable achievement from an editing, writing, and directing standpoint. I will say that for sure. Even though this is nowhere near one of my favorite screenplays of the year, I do think Sean Baker very well could get Best Original Screenplay. It almost seems locked up for him at this point, and it would be great to honor Sean Baker in that way. And I do think, though, what's really going to stay with me, and I think the reason probably why he is at least deserving to be nominated, is truly the ending of this film. It is one of those endings that after the movie finished, I could not stop thinking about it. And I think emotionally it brings the whole film together in a way that I truly was not expecting at all. It's one of those endings like Five Easy Pieces, where you just sit and lull over it and you just are astounded by what the movie is saying. Like, you truly understand what the story is all about once you reach the conclusion of this film. And that is all I will say on that point, because it is really what's making me want to go back and see this in theaters more than anything. And I certainly do think, like I said, it could end up being one of my favorites of the year. I just thought it really took a while to get going for me. But I think now that I know where the story's going, it really is going to play a lot better. Now, let's talk about how it's going to play at the Oscars, because I think that's going to be a very different story. Like I said, I think this could go all the way and win Best Picture. Well, I don't really see the Sean Baker Best Director nomination as opposed to some of the other films I've seen that I think are better directed. I do think that he is going to maybe even win. I really would like to see someone else win, but I do think that he is going to get nominated, and it would be deserved, I would say, because this is one great achievement from him. Now, I do like it a bit more than Red Rocket. I can't say if I can put it above The Florida Project yet, which is my favorite personal Sean Baker film that I've seen so far, but man, he is like knocking it out of the park with these films. The last three that he's made have been absolutely phenomenal. As I said, Mikey Madison is going to get nominated, if not win Best Actress. I do think Mark Edelstein should be in consideration for Best Supporting Actor, but it could be another Dominic Sessa situation where he does eventually get snubbed, though I would personally love to see him get nominated. I think he deserves one of the 5 slots this year for Best Supporting Actor. And I think, yeah, this movie could sweep up a bunch of other stuff. I don't see as many technical prospects for this film, but I do think that it is, you know, potentially going to go all the way to the finish line, and that would really be something to see. And yet again, I cannot wait to see this movie again. It's an absolute riot in all the best ways. The comedic beats are always hitting in continuously surprising ways, but really at its center, it's a really emotionally gripping character study of this sex worker and how she operates, how she functions. And yet again, really have to see this film. Can't recommend it enough. And I'm going to give Anora an 8.5 out of 10. As I said, could go up, but for now, that's what I'm going to leave it at. It's going to be one of the most talked about movies of the year regardless, so I can't wait to hear what you all think about it. And of course, if you have seen it at any of the festivals, please comment down below to tell me what you thought about it. And of course, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Going to be a lot more of these reviews coming very soon. But first, before I get into more TIFF reviews, I do have to hop on here and bring you my review of Transformers 1, directed by Josh Cooley. So that should be up in a day or so. Please stay on the lookout for that, and I'll talk to you guys very, very soon.